Hey, another game, another day, and another comeback win against the Georgia Bulldogs.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me, Jimmy Stein. That will be him when he eventually gets that Tandy 2000 computer he has kicked open, and he's ready to rock. Oh, here he is right now, just in time, Jimmy. Jimmy, we are live here on the YouTube machine.
Great. I'm hooked up and I'm on live with you.
Well, I want to tell everybody, first of all, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and also want to say thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Although today we're probably not your first listen because we're coming on about 7:30 at night. That's okay. That win against Georgia right there was huge.
Championship
Jimmy,
win.
That was
a championship team there that did that.
I don't know where to start. I mean, first of all, Pringle is suspended again for conduct detrimental to the team. How many times do you have conduct detrimental to the team before you're not a part of that team anymore? And look, I don't even know what he did yet. So I don't want to make too many rash statements. This is his second time for that suspension so far.
Yeah, it feels like I don't know it either. So, we'll probably both find out whether we can say or not, but we'll find out. But, I'm going to guess it's going to be relatively minor. And by minor, I mean anything you do that requires Coach Oats to sit you down and you can't dress and be a part of the team that night. I don't mean to say that any of that's minor. It's obviously major or Oats wouldn't do it. But what I mean by that is I doubt very seriously that it's legal trouble or trouble with university. It's probably very team related, as in saying things you shouldn't say, not showing up to a meeting.
Well, let's not go too much into it.
Yeah, because it's speculation.
It's speculation, and tonight's positive.
Yes.
Positive. Alabama was down 14 at the half, and everybody was tweeting out, wow, maybe this will be a tale of two halves. And my point was, yeah, I'm afraid it's going to be a tale of two halves when we get our ass kicked in both of them. That's what I was worried about. And but it turns out Alabama just, they just kept hanging around. Kids got alligator blood, for those who like the movie Rounders. And we just hung in there. And eventually, I would say Mark Sears really was the difference. But I'm going to say this again, and EJ Brasington has chimed in. He says, didn't know Grant Hill played like Grant Hill tonight. Grant Nelson could hit threes like that. He can, though. He's always been able to. The problem is he hasn't, because we've talked about it on this podcast a gazillion times. His confidence has been gone. And I think what's so ironic is, everybody was killing him for his defense. I think his defense against Tolu Smith at Mississippi State has turned Grant Nelson around. He is slowly but surely figuring out his way in this conference. And it's a tough conference. It's a man's conference. There's no doubt about it. But he is finding his way. And then he battled that giant behemoth for Georgia all night. And that guy's huge. And he's got a big-time backside that was just pushing Nelson around. And Nelson couldn't get around him. But Nelson stuck with it. And then at the end of the game, Nelson was able to pop out and shoot some threes because the other guy was pretty tired, you could tell, and he didn't want to come out on him. And Nelson buried two monster ones, and he also hit two big free throws.
He did, and he's always been capable of hitting those threes. I think it was a confidence thing with him, and his confidence just went away, and even to the point he was passing up shots. But all it takes to get it back is one. Sometimes it's just one. And when he hit that first one, there was a lot of hesitation before he put it up. But he did, and it went in. And that second one, there was no hesitation at all. That was the Grant Nelson, hey, my shot's back kind of shot. And hey, let me say one thing about Grant, who was a huge part of this win, and we'll get to Sears in a minute, who's every time I say Mark Sears now, I want to say SEC Player of the Year, Mark Sears. Grant Nelson, there were some really high expectations that, by the way, Grant did not create those. Grant was not online telling people how awesome he was. That was other adults doing that for him in his place. there were some very high expectations, and I think there was even silly talk in retrospect of, hey, he could be a lottery pick. This guy is so skilled, he could be a top 14 pick in the NBA draft. Well, the Grant Nelson we've seen so far hasn't been that, and I don't know that he's ever going to be that. So there's probably some Alabama fans out there that feel almost disappointed. Hey, let me tell you guys, Grant Nelson is a reason Alabama wins these games. He's a reason they win. He's a reason they go on the road and beat Georgia, and a reason that if they beat Mississippi State Saturday, they complete the first half of the SEC season at 8-1 because of Grant Nelson in part. Now, he gets a lot of help from Sears and others, but I'm just saying, I get being a little disappointed in terms of maybe he's not quite as skilled as we thought he might be, but his effort, his defensive effort that Luke pointed out, the fact that he hits big shots, the fact that he hits those free throws, the fact that he's a hard hat winning type effort guy, he's a reason this team is good. So don't be disappointed. Grant's just doing it differently than we imagine, but he's doing it. He's helping us win.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Let me say this. If Grant were a freshman, I think we'd be astounded at his growth. But because he's been playing at North Dakota, which, by the way, I mean, I know North Dakota's played Arkansas last year and they played them tough. And that was really where Grant Nelson burst onto the scene, I think. But he is sort of a freshman. And so we should have given him more leeway. I mean, the first game or two, he was kicking so much butt. We were like, oh, this guy's going to come in and just roll over the SEC. He may be freshman of the year, or player of the year. And really it should be, well, Connect, very good. Mark Sears is that dude. And look, this is a tweet from John Rothstein, of course, noted basketball aficionado. He tweeted out, first of all, he always tweets out after a Bama win, Nate Oats, my cousin Vinny. And then he tweeted out, 1, Mark Sears is the best guard in America that not enough people talk about. 2, Alabama is best with Grant Nelson as a face-up 5. Totally agree. And 3, Georgia lost a golden opportunity to move the deep needle tonight, which I also agree with, because if Georgia gets that win, it doesn't kill Alabama if we lose this game. It doesn't hurt us.
Helps Georgia more than it helped Alabama in so many ways.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Wouldn't have really killed Alabama to lose. I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah.
Again, any road win, that's like 2 wins, because your competition to catch you, for Tennessee to catch us, for Auburn to catch us, for Kentucky to catch us, they have to win on the road. The home wins won't do it. They got to win on the road to catch us. And boy, that's why that's just tremendous. It's like I said, road wins are like 2 wins.
No, I totally agree. And so now, we come and play a Mississippi State team. I want to keep talking about this game a little bit. But we play a Mississippi State team that's not very good on the road. We play them on Saturday, and then of course we got that monster matchup against Auburn. What this win against Georgia does, and I think, look, I'm not saying Alabama's definitely going to lose to Auburn in Neville Arena, but we all know it's going to be difficult. I bet you that most of us think, yeah, it's probably a loss. So what this win against Georgia does is sort of negate that, because if you lose to Georgia on the road and Auburn on the road, then it's a little bit trickier, because Alabama does have, a few more losses than most good teams because their schedule was so tough. But that's just the way it is. Jimmy, I need to tell everybody about FanDuel now, and if I can ever figure this out, I'm going to do it. I just figured it out, Jimmy. Just barely. At least I said I did. Yeah, I did. FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com/lockedon is where you want to go. Look, happy Super Bowl 2 weeks to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W, or 2 W's, or 3 W's, or 4 W's. Not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl, that's Super Bowl 58, by the way, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, which is an official partner of the NFL. So looking at the box score now, and boy, Nelson with 20, Mark Sears with 23. Nelson also with 2 nice blocks. I'll tell you, I thought a turning point in the game, they have this freshman Blue Cane. He's got sort of a man bun thing going on, but he's a heck of an athlete. And I saw him against against Florida Saturday, and I was like, this guy's kind of a dude. He tried a hammer Vince Carter-esque dunk over Grant Nelson. I think he was surprised that Nelson didn't foul him. Nelson just sort of he looked like he was going to try and take a charge. Then he took a step back. And I think that surprise came so much that he threw the ball over the goal out of bounds. And it felt like that may have been one of the turning points in the sense that Georgia had everything going. And whenever Alabama made a run, Georgia always found a way to stymie it. That could have brought the house down. And instead, it just turned into a big turnover.
Yeah, it reminded me of back when I played some basketball in junior high 8th grade, 9th grade. If I tried to dunk, it would end. The dunk that I would try would end with me throwing the ball at the rim still up. I would have to throw the ball up I would try as hard as I could to dunk it, but then I would still have to throw the ball upwardly. That's kind of what it looked like. Like he was dunking it, but still throwing the ball upward.
It looked like the rim. It looked like a blooper from Woody Harrelson in White Men Can't Jump. Diesel 42069 says,
shouldn't Blue Cane, by the way, have signed with somebody like Florida?
Yeah,
I mean someone that's blue.
Diesel 42069 says, Luke, my wife says hello. Hello, your wife. I'm not. Is that Mrs. Diesel 42069? I don't know. I don't know who it is. But I say hello.
I don't know that we want to break down the numbers on that guy's handle. There's a couple that stood out to me.
There's a lot of dangerous numbers all stacked right in there together.
Yeah. He's an attention getter, that guy.
Keith Jones, this is a good comment. He says, Nate Oats is criminally underrated. That stadium needs to be built and a lifetime contract needs to be on the table. Bama basketball will never experience this level of success again if Oats leaves. I don't know if that part's true. I'm for, look, lifetime contracts are pretty tricky, and I don't know that a lifetime contract is needed right now, but I do think, hey, let's lock this mother up as tight as we can. And Nate Oats is awesome. And again, I said this on the radio show I go on in Montgomery. I said, if you've been to a Final Four for whatever reason, that's like the badge. You can suck the rest of your career. And people are like, he did go to the Final Four. But Nate Oats just hadn't had as many opportunities. Oats has been fantastic. And I say this with all love and respect. I think he's the best coach in the SEC. I like Bruce. Bruce Pearl's a good coach. He's been to the Final Four. He did good things at Tennessee before he was at Auburn. He beat Alabama when he was at Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was at that game, by the way. It was in Cleveland. It was awful.
Nate's really good. I think I'm not trading him for her. I mean, you could come up with names, I guess, but I'm not trading Nate for anyone. I also think that people should know, and this is not me talking, this is just from inside the University of Alabama, inside info. Nate is thrilled at Alabama. He loves it here. He's not eager to leave. He's not eager to, he can't wait till the blue blood calls. He likes it here. And as far as the new arena, that would be great. But I know for certain, if given the choice, Nate prefers NIL money to a new arena. NIL has to be the first priority for Alabama basketball. And it is. And by the way, Alabama's recruiting extremely well. Why? Because in part, Alabama has done well in the NIL space when it comes to Alabama basketball recruiting. It needs to stay that way. And what people have to realize is, look, Alabama's not Texas. Alabama's not, Texas A&M. The same people that you would go to, hey, we need bigger donations to build the arena, are the same people you go to for Yay Alabama and Alabama basketball NIL recruiting. It's not like this is all out there in one pot. So people just need to be a little patient and realize, hey, we're undergoing some major shifts in college sports. These guys may be employees soon and paid by the university. That could happen in the next year. Now, I'm not talking about 10 years. I'm talking about next year. that's how quickly the landscape is changing. I don't think they're going to sink literally tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars into that arena until they figure out where this is going in terms of NIL and whether players are going to be employees.
Agreed.
And Nate's not upset about that. He's not upset about that. Nate, I don't know where people get, we need to build the arena or Nate will leave. That absolutely does not come from Nate Oats. What comes from Nate Oats is, boy, we really need to keep this NIL money coming. So
no, I agree with you. And let me give you another example.
That's kind of where. Yeah.
First of all, the Boston College head coach left Boston College today to go be the defensive coordinator at Green Bay, in part because he's like, I can't deal with this NIL crap anymore. And that's college coaching is really, really difficult right now. It's harder than the NFL. And if you're a college coach and you look around and go, hey, Jim Harbaugh is getting $16 million to coach the Chargers. So he essentially is getting $1 million per game, win or lose. I mean, I know they play 17 games now, but he's getting essentially $1 million a game, win or lose. That's it. And he's got off time. They've got parameters around the everything. Coming back to Nate Oats.
The real threat is Nate leaving for the NBA, just like these college. That's the real threat. I mean, and that could happen. It could. I'm not telling you it is, but it could. It could.
But I'll say this, that I think Nate Oats is hopefully he's a college guy. And I also think NIL and basketball may be a little easier to manage because they're just numbers. Fewer players. Also, Jimmy, I'm getting breaking news here. Turns out Nick Pringle was suspended because he's the elevator repairman for the hotel in Athens that we had Rylan Griffin and who was the other one? Jaron Stevenson got stuck on.
For whatever reason, I'm slow to that. But, yeah, I did hear that some players in the team hotel got stuck in the elevator.
Yeah, not good. But it happens. And you know what? Anything that makes the team play better, we're going to get stuck in a hotel elevator. Aerosmith tried to tell us getting stuck in an elevator isn't so bad. Jimmy, when we come back, we want to talk about the Courtney Morgan interview. Essentially, you're going to talk about it because I hadn't even watched it yet.
Okay.
All right, so Courtney Morgan is Alabama's general manager now, and we've also hired somebody new in the recruiting department from NC State. We also apparently are hiring somebody from TCU to basically get into the recruiting game. I know Auburn hired Will Redmond, I think it was, that to sort of be their GM. This is getting so NFL-esque, it's crazy. But I think Alabama hit it out of the park with this Courtney Morgan cat. Number one, he's got a lot of familiarity with the coaching staff and with Kalen DeBoer. And he just seems like a cat that gets it. And you watched the interview that he had, and, man, it's been all the rage on social medias.
Yeah, it was an interview with Ari Wasserman and his partner. They work at The Athletic. And so it's like a video podcast like you're watching right now if you're watching us on YouTube as opposed to listen to a podcast. But I encourage people to seek it out because in my mind, other than Kalen DeBoer's press conference when he was announced, I thought it was by far the best inside look at how it works, how the program is going to work under Kalen DeBoer. There were great questions. Courtney answered how the recruiting process is going to work at Alabama, what his role is, what they look for in prospects, how they offer. He talked about how the in-state guys are going to mean more to them, that recruiting in a 5-hour radius of Tuscaloosa was going to be a major thing. But a few things that stood out to me. Number one, Courtney shares, and it's clear he carries a big stick. I mean, Courtney Morgan's clearly going to be a huge voice when it comes to who are offers, who are takes. Courtney's going to have a big voice. It's not going to be like the Nick Saban 17 years where pretty much the only voice was Nick Saban. I mean, Nick Saban made those recruiting decisions, and it was kind of Coach Saban, and every now and then other coaches would chime in, subject to veto by Nick Saban. Now it seems that under Courtney Morgan's leadership, the recruiting process is going to be a little more collaborative, a little bit more of a process where everyone's pitching in, particularly the coordinators, offensive coordinator with the offensive guys, DC with the defensive guys, but with Courtney Morgan sort of organizing and shepherding the process, but really narrowing it down for Kalen DeBoer. Hey, you want 3 receivers? Hey, you don't have to look at 100. I've already looked at 200, and here's the 20 that we're going to be picking from. And Courtney sort of, I want people to think of him this way as in my interpretation. You know how the head coach is the closer with kids? Courtney is the opener. Okay. He's usually going to be point of first contact. And the first time that these prospects hear from Alabama or hear of Alabama and know that Alabama is interested in them, they're probably going to be hearing from Courtney Morgan. He obviously works. Alabama football recruiting is a full-time, around-the-clock job, 365 days a year. He says he's not had a day off since fall camp in August. Real hard working. But let me tell you, when he talked about recruiting guys, you would think he worked for Nick Saban. He was speaking out of the Nick Saban hymnal. He gave great praise to Coach Saban about how Alabama has done an incredible job of getting their top recruiting targets to camp, and that Nick Saban was renowned across the country for no one can get their top prospects to camp as good as Nick Saban, and camp is the best evaluation tool by far, and they want to continue this. They want to continue. Hey, Saban did a good job of getting all the targets to camp. That's what we want to do here. At other places, we couldn't do that. He even joked about how at Michigan, they would ask players, hey, for us to really offer you, we'd like to see you in camp. And kids would go, I'm not going to go up there and work out. And then they would hear 3 days later that the kid would do a full combine workout at Alabama for Saban. And they were like, how does he do this? They won't do it for us. So he wants to continue that. He also talked about, here's a term y'all recruit Nicks will remember from the Nick Saban years, critical factors. He said there are critical factors at each of the positions, and it's about checking boxes. But for Alabama, under Kalen DeBoer, to offer a kid, all the critical factors have to be checked. That counts for how tall you are, how fast you are, how much you weigh, what's your 40 time, what's your shuttle time, how much do you bench press. Those are all critical factors, including character, he says, which is a vital factor that they look for. But it sounded a whole lot like he was reading from the Nick Saban hymnal when it came to recruiting. And let me tell you, I've been following this stuff my whole life. I love the guy. I thought, wow, he is very impressive. I don't know that anyone knows this stuff any better than that guy knows it. So, man, we're in good hands, and I'm really eager to see it in action. And to some extent, we'll see it already because this Saturday is going to be a big junior day at Alabama, and the list of VIPs for this junior day is getting more and more impressive by the day. Check out the work by Andrew Bone and Joseph Hastings at BOL, who've been compiling this list of visitors. Pretty good because this is all DeBoer and Courtney Morgan's work here. This isn't Saban stuff. This is DeBoer and Courtney Morgan's work.
Yeah, it is. And two things that, I can't directly attribute them to Courtney Morgan, but all I can say is Courtney Morgan's been around, and all of a sudden Antonio Coleman's coming back for a visit. Zion Grady's coming back for a visit, along with several others. But those two are important because they're in-state. They're on the defensive line. Both of them were committed to Alabama at one time. One of them's now committed to Auburn. But they have come in and immediately made it where, hey, we want to come check out Alabama instead of, let me see what this guy can do. I think that's crucial. And the fact that they also got Ryan Williams. And I'll tell you something else. I want to throw this out there. It was funny today. For those who listen and watch the podcast, they know I have a son at Arizona State. And my son does a lot of video work for a couple of different things down there. He just sort of does it on the side, part of his schooling and all this. And so he goes and does, gets high school tape. And he said, Dad, I didn't realize Alabama got Noah Carter. And I said, yeah. He said, that kid is awesome. And he said, I don't have any film of him right now because, he's all turned all that in and wouldn't even know where to get it because he's turned it all in. But he said, man, he just impressed me so much every time I saw him. And he said, yeah, he's gonna play. He's gonna be a problem. So I was excited to hear that. From my son who's actually seen him in person. Of course, we don't have a lot of people that have seen. We've all seen tape of Noah Carter, but right. He's been out there and seen him in person. Just said he's
incredible.
Yeah.
So moved up to top 60 and on 3, by the way. Charles Power and the rankings department at on 3. move Noah Carter into the top 60 in America. That's a pretty big time pickup, especially in conjunction with Ryan Williams, Mr. Football, Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams winning Mr. Football. Ryan Williams became the first player ever to win Mr. Football twice. He didn't even do it in a 12th grade year.
Okay. Let me Pineapple Hut 7-day vacation rental. Yes, that's his username. Says, why didn't he save the 29 players that left Alabama? First of all, Pineapple Hut 7-day vacation rental. He wasn't going to save all of them anyway. Isaiah Bond was out of here. Caden Proctor was out of here. And then there's some that left that probably saw the writing on the wall.
20.
Like, it doesn't matter who the coach is. I'm not going to be the starter.
20. First of all, 20 of the 29, he says 29 left. 20 of those 29 left while Nick Saban was the coach, not Kalen DeBoer.
I mean,
20 of the 29 left while Nick Saban was the head coach.
Who said we wanted to save them all?
Almost all of them were not begged into staying. Almost all of them. There were 9 players that left after Saban resigned, but just 9, 4 or 5 of whom were starters, a couple of whom were freshmen that if they ever played were 2 or 3 years down the road. But only 9 players left after Kalen DeBoer was named head coach. Some people might say that's 9 too many, but if you look at the national average across the country of when a new coach is named, Alabama actually had fewer kids leave than the national average, again, after DeBoer was named head coach. Again, that 29 left is so misleading. It's just factually incorrect. 9 left under DeBoer's watch.
I mean, it really is kind of silly. And then when you couple that with the fact that, okay, yeah, he lost some dudes that were pretty good, but he brought in Ryan Williams and Noah Carter really on his own. And he brought in a guy who was a freshman All-American at center when one of our biggest problems last year was snapping the ball. I don't know. And he brought in a wide receiver. No, he didn't bring in Isaiah Bond. I agree. Jeremy Bernard is not Isaiah Bond.
He's in the ballpark.
He's good.
He's in the ballpark. I agree. Bond's better. And Bond was a loss. Black was a loss. Proctor, Downs. Those 4 in particular, and those were all DeBoer losses. I agree. Those were DeBoer losses. And that's a shame. But at the same time, it's par for the course. It's the new normal. And this is exact scene has played out all across the country. By the way, at Washington, DeBoer out, Jed Fish in, they all left. Yeah. They all left.
In fact, some people stayed in Arizona, did not go to Washington. Yeah. Jared Simmons tweets this out from world famous Mark Jennings. He says, Coach Oates tells me he reminded his team at halftime about all the times Alabama has come back and won against Georgia in football. That's hilarious.
I'm sure Kirby was there sitting courtside, and I'm sure he was when the comeback was happening. I'm sure Kirby was like, oh my gosh, where's Tua? Guard Tua. Kirby was yelling out, guard Tua.
Well, I'm going to tell y'all, I'm so eager already. I looked it up today. I thought Mark Sears may be inching up closer to all-time leading scorer in Alabama history than he is. He's not even in the top 10. In fact, I don't think he's really all that close. But if he continues this pace this year, and if Mark Sears, fingers crossed, decides he does want to come back next year, he can get in there. He can get in that top 10.
Hey, and that's what I'm talking about, that new arena that everybody's itching to build.
No, pay Mark Sears. And Grant Nelson.
What do you think Nate's going to prefer? You know, it's not up to Nate because the university money doesn't pay NIL. I mean, that's all collective money, and that's all the collective has to handle all that. But I just use it as an example of why the arena isn't quite as important as it was just 3 years ago. And for the people like, oh, they were never building that arena, you don't know Greg Byrne.
I agree.
And there's one other thing I'll say about the new arena because I've just been in meetings where this has been discussed by people that build the arena. No one wants that arena any more than Greg Byrne wants the arena. But it's just, at the moment, not a financially sound thing to do today. Hopefully, quote, tomorrow it will be. But they got to figure out the landscape first.
No, I'm with you on that. And look, I think Nate Oates' opinion would be, hey, we will play at the Student Rec Center. The main arena we want to play in is that one in Phoenix in April. So, right. So anyway, Jimmy, that's going to do it for today's podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining in on the live. I mean, we'd love to go live after the win. I wasn't going to go live if we lost. I'll tell you that right now. I have no problem admitting that. But we went live because, we thought we'd get some good feedback. And you guys, Keith Jones says, Luke, give him a discount on materials for the new arena. Yeah, I will. I'll do what I can. I'll cut it in half, then double it. That's what I'll do, just like I do for everybody else. All right.
The building's going to be made of like paper mache, but the fountain out front's going to kick butt.
It's just going to be bad. It's going to be just Nate Oats peeing on everybody. All right.
Hey, I'll buy that one.
All right.
That'll look good in front of my condo. No, I'll buy that one. Make two.
Chris Stewart, by the way, he did have the quote of the day. He said, Chris Stewart mentioned on the broadcast that former Bama assistant coach Kirby Smart was courtside. That's pretty classic. All right. Let's go do it for today. Roll Tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.